I genuinely believe these are the most important podcast episodes ever created. This is part 9 of our 14-part investigation into the truth and universal principles for a good human life. Today we're talking about reality distortion. Now, if you've listened to the other parts of the series, this is where things are going to start to get a little wild, a little controversial, a little foo-foo, schizo maybe. It's up to you what you think of this, obviously. If you've noticed that the other things I've said work, which they absolutely do, try them out for yourself, then take this with a grain of salt if you'd like, but I prefer to eat it raw. No, but on a serious note, these are some things I have noticed throughout a lot of studying and researching and thinking about things. And these are all universal principles for a good human life. And this is a very powerful one, even more so, reality distortion that is. It's even more powerful because most people think it's completely crazy. And so if you're able to see the logic inside of it, you'll be able to use this to your advantage where most people just ignore it. It's like if you see a Lambo with its doors open and most people pass by thinking, oh no, it's probably a trap, there might be a bomb inside. But you just decide, whoa, let me look around in the car, looks good. You get in and you drive it and it drives fine. Now you have like a Lambo. I mean, Lambo is a bad example, bad car, but but now you have a nice car, you can go fast, you can go places where most people don't because they don't want to be caught in a yellow car because most people don't have a yellow car and they stick out and they're afraid they're going to be called crazy. But it's those crazy enough to think they can change the world that do, right? Or crazy enough to think they can change their lives are the ones that do. So the basic idea of reality distortion is that reality, this stuff around me, isn't as solid as we make it out to be. You can mold it. Reality isn't something that just exists, it's something you can play with and change. So obviously if you listen to the previous one, you'll realize this links in very strongly with the whole idea of high agency. It does. And so one way this expresses itself is through ideas. The way you can see ideas are as these waves that people send out. Like if you've studied physics, you know the electromagnetic spectrum. You can imagine people sending out different colored waves, like some are yellow, some are blue, some are very big in amplitude, some are smaller, some are quick, some are slow. You have all these waves traveling around the world, especially between people. And it's the strongest waves that win. That's not related to their amplitude or their color. It's related to how strongly the emitter is. So I'll give you a concrete example. The reason kids tend to believe in a lot of things that are told to them, so they're more gullible, is because the waves of the person telling them that thing is a lot stronger than their own wave. So you can tell a kid that Santa Claus is real because you can pretend to be really convinced in that, have high conviction in it, which means your wave, the red wave you're sending out, is going to be very strong. And the kid is basically not emitting any waves, it's just receiving waves because it doesn't know anything about the world. In an argument, the reason somebody wins, well, nobody really wins an argument, but very often, especially in the realm of ideas and stuff, it's the person with higher conviction that wins, not necessarily the person that's right. It's the person who shouts strongest, not the person who has the right answer. And so a very concrete way of seeing this is when you meet somebody new, especially like if you go on a date with a girl, if you truly believe that you are a good guy, that she would be lucky to get with, that is a strong belief inside of your mind, given she doesn't know much about you, she will just receive that wave and choose to believe it until there's contradicting evidence. That's why, when you meet somebody and you can kind of notice in their demeanor, in the things that they say that they don't really believe in themselves, you kind of think, yeah, I guess you are kind of a piece of shit. Now, if they over-index, so I guess like a kind of narcissist, and they talk about how great they are all the time, the real wave they're sending out is, oh, I'm actually not very secure because I don't have much going for me. And then you'll believe that too. But if somebody is sending out the right waves at the right frequency, and they're stronger than your waves opposing their frequency, then you'll just believe them. And so you can see everything in the world is just a massive battlefield of ideas of these, let's say, electromagnetic waves. They're not really on the electromagnetic spectrum, but these kinds of waves of ideas that fight it out in this enormous battleground for influence. And so if you hold frame on something, if despite opposition, you stick to your beliefs, you stick to your guns, people will just accept it because they'll think, well, if he's so sure about this, then he must have a reason to be so sure, so he's probably right. Because they don't have the evidence or conviction to say otherwise. If they've known you for 10 years and know that you lie all the time, then they probably won't believe you no matter how many times you say, I don't lie. But if somebody new doesn't know you and they just ask you, hey, do you lie often? And you just say, no, not really. And they're like, are you sure? Because I was told by this guy. And you'll just say, oh no, he's like, you'll say something. Your conviction is much higher. They don't know you, so they will believe you. And so not only do you constantly receive other people's waves in their behavior, in the things they say, you also constantly send out waves, not only through the things you say, but also the ways you behave, the things you do, and the clothes you wear, the way you behave, what you eat, what you drink. All of these things are sending out waves that people can receive and be influenced by. And so the person with the strongest beliefs, I'll repeat it one more time, is the person that shapes reality. And this is where you can start to see the idea of reality distortion coming in, which is what is true isn't always what is believed, if that makes sense. So for example, the reason folklore, like beliefs in supernatural stuff, continues to exist is because the person saying it, the elder in the village, you can imagine around a campfire, there's like an old guy telling the kids about the demons that come out at night. The teller's certainty in what they're saying is a lot higher than the uncertainty or the certainty in the disbelief of that thing in the kids, right? So it's a really complicated way of saying that the elder has higher conviction in what he's saying than the conviction of the young people in distrusting the elder. And then, in a weird way, even if the demons don't exist, like these magical demons that come out at night, even if they don't exist, if everybody believes it, then in a weird way they kind of do. Because then they might see green eyes at night and they'll think, oh shit, those are the demons. And then they tell everybody, they're certain that they saw those green eyes. Other people can't really disprove it, so they'll just think, oh shit, those demons really are real. And then that sort of fake reality, that bubble, is built up. And now a lot of people will think, oh, well, I don't want to live in this like weird fantasy world. I want to live in like the real world. I want to be tethered to the truth. But the thing is, you won't fucking know if you are in the truth, if you live inside of reality or not. So you might as well, because basically what we call reality is just a shared illusion. We are all fucking hallucinating, and the hallucination that we all agree on is what we call reality. Because, and this goes to like, I don't even know what field of study this is, but you don't really see the world, you only see what your brain shows you. This isn't everything you're seeing around us, like the trees and the fucking sky and whatever, aren't really this way in real life. Like color isn't a property of the trees. It's just that's the only type of light that reflects off of it, so my eyes perceive it as green. Do you understand what I'm getting at? Like, if you looked at it from a purely objective perspective, it's all just atoms. Atoms don't have color. It's only that they reflect and absorb different wavelengths of color. Because to us, it looks like all the trees have been painted green. You could imagine, oh yeah, they've all just been painted green. But in reality, no, they're just like all gray or whatever. And this is also the reason snake oil salesmen succeed. It's because their conviction in their product, or their performative conviction, is a lot stronger than the uncertainty of the people they're selling to. Because we tend to believe people. By default, we trust because most people don't lie. And here I'm not telling you to lie. It's more of bending reality to the way you want it to be. Because again, this whole idea of truth is a really fucking fuzzy concept. It's like if you're trying to woo a lady, which is basically a way of saying like convince her that you are worth mating with in like a autistic way. The scientific way is basically going on a date is trying to convince the other person you're worth dating. Are you really worth dating? There's no way to know. But would it serve you to convince the other person that you are worth dating? Yes, it is. And this sounds very morally questionable because you'll think, oh, you're just telling people to lie. But not really. It's like, are you actually very strong and reliable? You could say that you are on the first date and put your best foot forward, but then if it turns out you can't walk, meaning you're not reliable, you're not strong, then they're gonna figure that out and just leave you because you lied. Lying, or that example right there, is basically the reality you built up, the distorted reality, the distortion you created crumbling, and the other person realizing, oh, this isn't a fundamental, like, solid layer of reality. This is just something they painted on. And all of this, now that I've said it, sounds quite obvious, but a lot of people think it's going to be crazy. And that's because, again, you think about who wouldn't want people to know this. The people who are distorting reality themselves. The people who own the media channels that feed you garbage all the time to get you to pay your taxes and whine about all the different problems in the world without actually doing anything. Those people don't want you to know, and you've been indoctrinated to think these sorts of ideas are completely crazy, because if you think something is crazy, you won't do it, obviously. And you've been told that reality is real, that the financial system is real, that school is real and very important, and all these things, when in reality, they're all just human constructs. Money is just numbers, which are just like ways of arranging lines of ink on paper or like digital ink on screens. It's not actually real. But if you believe it's real, it's going to matter to you a lot, which means you'll be scared to lose it, which means you won't want to revolt. You won't want to complain. This ties into enlightenment, where when you realize all these things are just made up and ways of distorting reality to serve certain people and interests, then you realize, well, holy shit, at the end of the day, there is no universal meaning. From there, you get to enlightenment, which is realizing that, but then acting despite it, revolting. And so how do you actually apply this? Well, the first one is useful beliefs. What is useful is not always true, and what is true is not always useful. The best example is it true that you have potential to change your life and become very rich and live your dream life? Is that true? Do you actually have that potential? Do you have that within you? We don't know. There is no real way to know whether you can do that. But now, is it useful for you to believe that you can? Obviously it is, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe that you can change your life, you will change your life. If you believe you can't, then you can't. If you believe you can, then you can. And then these useful beliefs go into a lot of different things, like the belief in God, in terms of Pascal's wager, in terms of dating. Like, is it true that, I don't know. And this sometimes happens with like exaggerations and stuff, but some things aren't true, but they are useful to believe. And I care more about what is useful than what is true, except if the truth is useful. And then you have that focus warps reality in your favor. I noticed this when I was writing my book. And when I think in one sitting, I wrote for 6 to 8 hours. Like, I woke up very early, maybe 6 a.m., and just wrote until midday. And I realized that time went by very slowly, but not in a bad way. It wasn't that I was having a bad time, but it just felt like the clock was ticking so slowly that I was able to do so much work. I was able to stop, think about the next paragraph, write it, and I wrote an entire paragraph in what felt like what should have been minutes, but in reality only took me like 10 seconds. So by focusing your attention on things, you can warp reality. Then you have that being delusional helps you win. And this is part of the dark energies and dark things you need to be able to control. What does that mean? Well, it goes back to the belief, like useful beliefs. You need to be delusional. You hear that often, but what does that actually mean? Well, again, is it true that you are able to change the world? We don't know. Nobody can tell you that. But if that's wrong and you believe it, the worst case is you try and you fail. But if you believe that and it works out, then you weren't delusional and it was true. So basically, given you can't know if something is true or not, believing the right thing, even if that makes you delusional, is the better option. Delusional is basically believing in something that isn't real. But given you can't know what is real or not, you should believe in the things that serve you and not believe in the things that don't serve you, even if they might be true. For example, the black pill, the whole thing that like genetics is the only thing that matters and you can't do anything about anything. I would rather not believe that and turn out to be wrong than believe that and turn out to be wrong or right. Because the other, like believing in the black pill is just depressing. No matter what you do, no matter whether you're right or wrong, it's just depressing. Whereas not believing in the black pill is already much better. It's the equivalent of being optimistic. And on top of that, if you're right, you basically hit the jackpot, you win. And if you're wrong, then too bad, but at least you'll be happy whilst you lived. And try to improve your looks, but the black pill is just stupid. Reality distortion is also charisma, what we call charisma, what we call persuasion. This is how you change the world. Reality distortion is charisma, because charisma is just ways of behaving that make people conform to whatever reality you want them to conform to. Persuasion is convincing people that your form of distorted reality is closer to the real reality than theirs. And changing the world is simply bending reality to your will. And this isn't about a postmodernist, your truth kind of thing. It's like, oh, I think I'm healthy even though I'm 500 pounds overweight. It's more about the relentless pursuit of a goal. It's having a goal that matters to you so much that you are literally willing to bend reality to make it work. It's like, imagine you want to get to the other side of the universe, but that would take you a lot of light years to get there and you would die before you get there. Reality distortion is the equivalent of creating a wormhole, if you watch those like physics YouTube videos, in order to actually get there. But the thing is, all those people that say like, oh, I'm fat and that's healthy, are technically distorting reality, just not in the most useful way. So that's where you need to be careful. I don't think a lot of them actually believe what they say, but that's where it can get dangerous, where you have something that's actually toxic for you, but you convince yourself that it's not. Steve Jobs, it's a double-edged sword, just like a lot of things. Reality distortion can be extremely helpful with setting like very tight deadlines, impossible deadlines, going back to deadlines, going back to in high agency, that the belief that nothing is impossible. So in the case of Steve Jobs, for example, he would set a lot of deadlines that were impossible, but then they would hit them. Same with Elon Musk. But Steve Jobs, for example, was diagnosed with cancer and then tried all these crazy diets that didn't work, but he thought they would. The reality distortion, which is why he died, because the cancer spread to the rest of his body. It's a double-edged sword, so be careful how you use it, but it is very powerful in both ways. You know, what I find really cool is that with this, not only like with everything that I've shared so far, all the universal principles on this series for a search into the truth and whatever, not only are you going to have an amazing life that's meaningful and that's interesting, that means money, that means success, that means women, but you're also going to be kind of like a Jedi. Now, I know that's not supposed to be the best selling point, but I honestly think that's kind of cool. Now, don't go around sounding very autistic and saying, oh, I can distort reality. But knowing that you can, and knowing how all of this stuff works, and especially when you see it in action and you're like, oh, that's what he was talking about, that's what's going to feel really cool. Propaganda isn't as fake as everyone, if everyone believes it. That's what I was saying earlier. If everyone believes the lie, is it really still a lie? Technically, but for useful purposes, is it really a lie? Probably not. Reality is as real as what isn't. That I got that line in a dream, and I kind of get what it means, but I'm still trying to figure out the entire meaning in a way that I can explain it. It's more of just like an intuition at the moment. And I think this also goes hand in hand with this idea of a deeper realm of existence. This is something I've been thinking about for a long time. which is basically that what we call reality is only the surface layer, and that there's deeper layers. I first had this idea, or like this realization, when I found out that bats use echolocation. And that makes you think, well, holy shit, for bats, the world looks completely different. It's like shapes and sizes and objects and stuff, but there's no color. At least we don't think so. And so that made me think, well, maybe what we call reality, like this physical realm, is only the highest, like the surface level, and below that maybe you have energy, below that you have love and like vibrations and stuff. I don't know. But reality distortion does go hand in hand with that, because through things like meditation and other things, you can get other forms of reality distortion. Not the kind of like, oh, useful beliefs and persuasion, but more of a deep spiritual, philosophical kind of reality distortion. And then I wrote some rituals to do: meditate, experience life, live beyond your fear and beyond your edge, build yourself up through bodybuilding, work, etc. These are the same rituals as always, and talk to strangers. Because talking to strangers really makes you realize that reality isn't as solid as it's made out to be. All the things that society tells you, like, oh yeah, you're not meant to talk to strangers, strangers are dangerous, people are weird if they talk to you like that, and all these things, like the idea that you can't do that because it's weird and you'll get judged for it. When you do speak to a stranger and you realize, holy shit, it's not that big of a deal, you will break that distorted reality that wasn't serving you in any way. And that's when you'll think, wait, why am I being told that all these things, like that I need constant stimulation, and that scrolling and vaping is normal, and that destroying my body is normal, and that not working towards my goals but working towards other people's goals are normal? You'll start questioning things, and that's very powerful. If you don't know me, my mission is to lead the world to enlightenment, so out of darkness and into the light of being and love and existence and all these things. So join the movement to enlightenment. If you found this interesting, you can listen to the other episodes. You can find me on Instagram for more of my personal life and seeing this stuff in action. If you want more concrete, actionable things, there's a shorter form YouTube thing, but podcasts for now are the deepest thing. Eventually there will be a book. Eventually there will be in-person stuff. This really is a movement, so you can join now. Contact me. I don't know how, figure it out. That's not the best pitch, but I do want to get in touch with people who find this interesting, because we're really building something great here, and you can join us. Anyways, that's it. I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.